The Habsburgs, when genetics determined the fate of an empire. Let's try to make this an exciting narrative, as if we're telling the story not just about a family, but about a real drama, where people's destinies intertwine with genetics, power, and strange mysteries. There will be unexpected twists and a concluding thought that will make the viewer reflect on how the histories of great dynasties can be connected to the most basic biological factors. It all began in the 15th century, when the Habsburg dynasty seized power in Europe and started building their empire. This was a dynasty that, at one point, ruled all of Central Europe, Spain, the Netherlands, and even Mexico. Their influence was immense, but their appearance and health were, to put it mildly, peculiar. But let's start with the most obvious. Lips, jaw, nose. The Habsburgs had one distinctive genetic trait that was reflected in each of them: the Habsburg jaw. This jaw was so prominent that it was even compared to a shark's teeth. Their whole mouth looked as though it had been molded from clay, and no one ever tried to correct it. But what if we tell you that this strange physical trait didn't just become a characteristic, but a symbol of power and the strongest genetic dominance that survived for centuries? How did it become so dangerous? It wasn't random. Like any other monarchs, the Habsburgs sought to strengthen their power through marriages. But in their case, genes became a weapon, not just a sign of inheritance. Over several centuries, members of the dynasty married only close relatives, which led to genetic bottlenecking. It all started with Maximilian I, who married the daughter of Philip the Handsome, and this union became the true beginning of the era of Habsburg marriages. Their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all entered into these dynastic unions, trying to strengthen the family line. But here's where the problem began. Genetic isolation began to take its toll. Over time, serious genetic anomalies began to emerge in the Habsburgs, related to jaw, teeth, and even nose defects. Their appearance became more and more extravagant and unusual, and soon, the Habsburg jaw became synonymous with their rule. Why did they do this? Why did the Habsburgs continue these strange marriages, despite the problems they might have caused? The answer lay in their desire for absolute power. Honestly, they were willing to pay a high price for the security of their lineage, and that price came in the form of extraordinary appearance and even psychological disorders. Some descendants began to show speech problems, others mental issues, and this turned into a vicious cycle. But there's something even more fascinating. The Habsburgs understood that their appearance could be both a symbol of power and a curse. That nose, jaw, lips, these weren't just defects. They were a visible anomaly, which created a sense among the subjects that they were not facing ordinary people, but something more powerful. They couldn't just be mere mortals, could they? After all, who else would suffer so much from their own body if not someone who possessed unimaginable power? How did it all end? By the 18th century, when the dynasty had reached the peak of its power, these genetic anomalies began to affect the quality of their rulers. Charles II, the last Spanish Habsburg, became the tragic symbol of this. He was mentally and physically weakened, his jaw was so pronounced that it was difficult for him to speak. Moreover, he was a gift of several generations of genetic isolation. Inbreeding led to degeneration, and the Habsburg dynasty gradually faded into oblivion. But here's the important part. This wasn't just the fall of a dynasty, it was a warning. They paid a high price for their power, and not just for it, because they didn't realize how genetics could change their future. And now, the most unexpected thing. All those centuries when the Habsburgs searched for ways to strengthen their power, they didn't know the most important thing. Those flaws in their appearance, which they were so proud of, ultimately led to the complete destruction of their family. And do you know what's the most interesting part? Their genes actually held the key to incredible potential for salvation. Recent studies show that if their descendants had carried just a small part of their genetic anomaly into the next generations, some of them could have become incredibly strong and unique. The Habsburg genes, their lips, jaw, nose, weren't just quirks. They were keys to unimaginable possibilities for genetic evolution. But fate didn't give them a second chance. So, what can we learn from this story? The Habsburgs could have become not just a symbol of tragedy, but also great experimenters in the field of genetics, if only their approach to power hadn't consumed their lives. When we look at their portraits, at their unusual features, it's important to remember, these weren't just anomalies. They were the legacy of a great dynasty, which became a curse of used. Thank you for watching. If you want more stories like this, give it a like. Good luck.